Have you ever looked at a stock chart and felt like you were staring at a heart monitor in a hospital room, just hoping for a pulse? Most people treat the stock market like a high stakes casino, chasing the next big thing or listening to some expert on TV who shouts about price targets and technical breakouts. But what if I told you that the greatest investor to ever live, a man who has built a fortune of over $100 billion, doesn't use a Bloomberg terminal, doesn't care about head and shoulders patterns, and spends most of his day in a quiet room in Omaha just reading? Warren Buffett is 94 years old. He still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He drinks 5 Cokes a day and eats McDonald's for breakfast. He isn't a superhuman genius with a secret algorithm. He is a disciplined man who uses a very specific set of filters to find businesses that are essentially money machines. Today, we are going to deconstruct those filters so you can stop gambling and start investing. The first and perhaps most important filter is the circle of competence. The biggest mistake you're probably making right now is trying to be smart in areas you know nothing about. Buffett has a very simple rule. If he can't understand how a business makes money and what it will look like in 10 years, he puts it in the too hard pile. Think about it. Buffett was virtually there at the birth of Intel. He sat on boards with the founders. He could have bought in at the ground floor, but he didn't. Why? Because even the people in the industry didn't know what it would look like in 5 years. If the experts don't know, how can you? On the other hand, he knows exactly what the chewing gum business or the soda business will look like in a decade. The internet isn't going to change how we chew gum. Your circle of competence isn't about how big it is, it's about knowing where the edges are. If you're a nurse, you probably understand healthcare better than a hedge fund manager. If you're a mechanic, you know which car parts are indispensable. Buffett says that if you have a 150 IQ, you should sell 30 points to someone else because you don't need it for investing. What you need is the temperament to stay inside your circle. He often uses the no called strike analogy from baseball. In the market, you can let thousands of pitches go by. You can wait for the one that is right in your sweet spot before you swing. You only need to be right a few times in your life to be rich. Finding 10 great opportunities in a lifetime is enough, but you cannot afford any zeros. Once Buffett finds a business he understands, he looks for the moat. Imagine a beautiful economic castle. Every day, competitors are going to try to storm that castle and take your profits. A moat is the thing that keeps them out. Sometimes the moat is being the low-cost producer. Look at Geco. Everyone has to buy auto insurance, and they usually buy it based on price. Because Geco sells directly to the customer and skips the agents, their costs are lower than almost anyone else's. That's a moat filled with sharks. Other times, the moat is share of mind. This is even more powerful. Think about Coca-Cola. It is associated with happiness all over the world. You can give me $10 billion to try and knock off Coke, and I can't do it. Or think about Disney. If you're a parent and you want to buy a movie for your kids, are you going to spend 2 hours researching Universal Pictures versus Disney, or are you just going to grab the Disney one because you know and trust it? That share of mind allows a company to raise prices without losing customers. Buffett actually tests this pricing power. When he bought See's Candy, he asked himself, if we raise the price by 10 cents a pound, would people stop buying? The answer was no. People buy See's as a gift. You aren't going to go home on Valentine's Day and tell your wife, honey, I bought the low bid candy this year. That is pricing power. Contrast this with commodity businesses where the guy who can sell it cheaper than you makes it risky. If you have to have a prayer meeting before raising prices by a penny, you're in a bad business. Buffett wants to see a moat that is widening, not narrowing. He looks at how a salesperson smiles at a customer as a sign of a widening moat, because if they snarl, the moat narrows. The third filter is honest and able management. You can have a great business, but if it's run by crooks or slobs, you're going to lose. Buffett looks for 3 things in a management team: intelligence, energy, and integrity. And he is very clear, if they don't have the last one, you better hope they are dumb and lazy because a smart, energetic crook will destroy you. He doesn't want managers who just love the money. He wants managers who love the business. He views them as artists, and he sees himself as the man who gives them a bigger canvas and more brushes but lets them paint their own painting. This is why Berkshire Hathaway has only a tiny staff at headquarters managing hundreds of thousands of employees. They find people who are fanatical about their work, and then they get out of the way. How do you spot a good manager from your kitchen table? You use the scuttlebutt approach. You act like a reporter. You talk to customers, suppliers, and ex-employees. Buffett used to ask every CEO, if you could only buy stock in one competitor that was not your own, which one would it be and why? Or even better, if you had a silver bullet and could put it through the head of one competitor, which competitor would it be? You will quickly find who the best guy is in the industry. You also look for managers who are honest about their mistakes in annual reports. If a manager uses a lot of EBITDA or creative accounting to hide expenses, Buffett runs the other way. Charlie Munger famously said that every time you see the word EBITDA, you should substitute it with the words bullshit earnings. Real managers talk to shareholders as partners, not as sheep to be shorn. Now, I know some of you want the math. While Buffett focuses heavily on the qualitative stuff, he has 3 quantitative filters he uses every single time. These are his safeguards against stupidity. Number 1, return on equity, often called ROE. This tells you how efficiently a company uses the money shareholders have given them. Imagine you and a friend open a burger stand with $20,000. At the end of the year, you make $4,000 in profit. That's a 20% ROE. Buffett wants to see this consistently above 15%, ideally 20% or more, for at least 10 to 20 years. This is the fingerprint of a truly wonderful business. If a company only earns 5 or 6%, they are barely keeping pace with inflation and have no moat. Number 2, debt to equity ratio. This is about safety. Debt is a double-edged sword. When times are good, it makes you look like a genius by amplifying returns. When times are bad, it's the thing that kills you. The bank doesn't care if your sales are down 30%. They want their money. Buffett generally wants to see debt levels below 50% of equity. He wants a fortress balance sheet like Apple's, where they are literally sitting on a mountain of cash. He learned this lesson the hard way when he bought the original Berkshire Hathaway textile mills. It was cheap, but it was a terrible business suffocating under a mountain of debt. A mediocre business with debt is a disaster waiting to happen. Number 3, price to earnings ratio, or the PE ratio. This is what you pay versus what you get. Price is what you pay, value is what you get. Even the greatest business is a bad investment if you pay too much for it. Buffett isn't looking for dirt cheap cigar butts anymore. He's looking for wonderful businesses at fair prices. He'd rather pay a little more for a business that can compound for 30 years than pay bargain basement prices for a dying business that has one free puff left. All 3 of these numbers must check out. If even one is unfavorable, he typically walks away. We can see this strategy in action with his investment in American Express in the early 1960s. There was a huge scandal involving a subsidiary, and the stock price got hammered. People were genuinely terrified. But Buffett didn't focus on the noise. He looked at the filters. Was the moat still there? Yes, the core card business was unaffected. Was the management honest? Yes. Was the ROE strong? Yes. And because of the panic, the price was incredibly cheap. He bought heavily and made a fortune. He says to be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. If you want to reach the finish line, you have to stop looking at the scoreboard every 5 minutes. Buffett says that if the New York Stock Exchange closed for 5 years tomorrow, he wouldn't care. He'd just keep watching the earnings of his businesses grow. The market is there to serve you, not to instruct you. Most people let the stock price affect their assessment of a company, but you should look at the asset for value, just as you would with a farm. You don't get a price on your farm every day, and you shouldn't worry about the daily jiggles of a stock price either. Volatility is not risk. Finance professors will tell you that a stock that drops 50% is riskier than it was before, but if you understand the business, that drop makes it less risky because you are getting it for a better price. Risk comes from not knowing what you are doing. If you understand the economics and you know the people, you are not taking much risk. Avoid the herd mentality that causes high IQs to become paralyzed. As Ben Graham taught, you are neither right nor wrong because the crowd disagrees with you. You are right because your data and reasoning are right. Don't try to be the smartest person in the room. Try to be the most disciplined. Read everything in sight. Buffett reads 500 pages a day, even at 94. Stay inside your circle. Wait for the fat pitch. And once you find it, have the courage to sit on your hands and let the miracle of compounding work for you. You don't need a Bloomberg terminal or a fancy degree. You just need to sit at your kitchen table, check your filters, and be patient. Remember, if an old guy who eats McDonald's and drinks Coke all day can figure this out, so can you. Miles to go, millions to make. Let's finish the journey together. I'm Miles, and I'll see you at the finish line.